Hi, everyone. Welcome to Let's Talk. My name is Nick Cosgrove, and I'm joined today by Dean Ellison. Dean is a real estate agent. He's also a client of mine. In my opinion, he's one of the best real estate agents around. That's why I wanted to get him on the channel today. The guy knows his stuff. He's been doing this for over a decade. Dean, welcome.
Thank you.
Dean, before we start, why don't we I want to address this current situation with the market here in Vancouver, British Columbia. But before we get there, why don't you tell everyone how you got into real estate?
I got into real estate 13 years ago. I did operate a small chain of retail stores, but I was also an active investor in the market. I bought my first condo in Coal Harbour, 1996 for $140,000. Wish I had bought like 50 of those.
Oh my God. Yeah, no kidding.
And back then, I mean, I had a group of friends. We started with maybe $20,000 to invest in the market. Just think today, if you could buy a condo in Coal Harbour for 20 grand down, right?
Yeah.
$600 a month.
Right.
So what a lot of us did back then is pre-sales were really ramping up. And, for literally 5 to 10%, you could get into a pre-sale. And pre-sales then, there was tons for 150 to 200,000. We'll do the math. That's like 10 grand, 15 grand, all in with all your deposits. So what a lot of us did is we started actually buying and flipping pre-sales. We would buy them 2 years out. We would then complete. We would maybe keep them for 12 months so we could mitigate some of the capital gains. And often we would make about 100,000 on each flip, and that's kind of the rate at which real estate was increasing through the late 90s and early 2000s. You'd buy something for, 175, and it would be worth maybe 260 by the time it completed and by the time you lived in it. So I remember at the time, and not to degrade anybody in the industry, but I'd always employ the services of realtors, and I started realizing I actually started knowing a lot more than they did. And I've been an operator of retail stores, owned a couple in the States and a couple in Canada. And I just thought, it's time for a career change. I've been doing this over 20 years. And it just seemed really natural for me to go ahead and get my license. And I just knew so much. I flipped and invested in 8 properties by the time I got my license. And I just sort of eased myself right into it. And it just felt really natural. It felt more or less a continuation of what I've been doing for myself.
Right. Let me ask you about the capital gains. Before you would flip it, would you tenant that place for a whole year before you flipped it? How would that work?
Live in it.
Oh, you would live in it yourself?
Yeah. So back then, obviously the rules have really tightened up, but back then, as long as you pretty much lived in your condo for a little bit more than a year, you were exempt. You could claim a personal property 1 or 2 times and kind of just, I shouldn't really be telling you what I did 25 years ago. Obviously that's a lot more difficult now. But typically, if you lived in your condo for a little bit more than a year, you're probably okay.
Right. So, I mean, I've lived in Vancouver since about 2000, and I correct me if I'm wrong here, but the first Vancouver real estate explosion happened, would you say about 2004, 2005, around that time?
Yeah. It was really, really affordable, ironically, in the 90s.
Right.
I think as I said, I bought my first place in 96, 97 for 140. I sold it in 2003 for just under 200, which I thought was an incredible gain.
Sure.
And starting then is sort of when we started flipping these pre-sales. And if you kind of got into, purchasing a pre-sale in the sales center and waiting 2 years and then living in it, sort of a 3-year cycle, through about 2002 to about 2007, 2008, a lot of my friends did quite well. There was a real steady rate of growth, especially if you did. That's when you saw lineups for all the pre-sales. I remember Yaletown Park was a good one. They had the sales center in Pacific Center Mall. And, it was those situations where the lineups were around the block. They would sell out in a matter of hours. And everybody was on to that game and on to that flip scenario until the 2008 changes, and that's really where that ground to a halt. And I got my real estate license about a year before that happened. So I saw that crash, and that put an end to the ability to make that kind of gain in such a short period of time.
Right.
Start hanging on to things.
So essentially, I mean, a year after you started your career in real estate as a real estate agent, we go into this massive recession,
Yep.
markets crash. So
Yep.
as an agent, tell me what's that like?
Well, having invested in a bunch of properties and having been quite familiar, or so I thought, with the real estate industry, I did what I think every new agent should do. I did change my career in my early 40s. So the worst scenario is to be cold calling at 42 years old, which is when I got my license.
Sure.
Just gave away my age. So I actually joined. I partnered up with a really experienced agent, and just rode the coattails of that. And you may get a little less glory in the early years, and potentially even make a little bit less commission on each transaction. But you will tag on to that person's or that team's years and years of experience, and it's kind of like jumping into a movie when it's 2/3 through.
Sure.
Fly by the seat of your pants. You have to learn super fast. You're very humbled by your lack of knowledge compared to your teammates. But you really get to skip an extremely challenging period for a lot of agents, where you're in the office and you've got a great suit on and great shoes, but you don't have anywhere to go. And so that's what I did. I teamed up with a very experienced agent who had also worked on a lot of international properties, and away we went. I was working quite a few listings in my first 3 months, and the learning curve was completely vertical.
Right.
So, it's the way to go.
You mentioned Yaletown Park, which I believe is a building on Smythe and Homer. Is that correct?
Yeah, three towers.
I think there's 2 towers. Yeah, I have a few clients that actually live in those towers, and I think it was done by Peter Wall, right?
Yep.
Okay. I remember back when I first moved here, Yaletown was like empty. There was all warehouses, and it was like not a good place to go at night. Around what year did they start building up? Do you remember?
I bought my first Yaletown property in a building called the Gallery, which was one of the first towers, really, except for the first wave from the late 90s. And I bought that pre-sale in, I think, 2001, moved into it in 2003. If anybody wants to know, I bought the sub penthouse for $299, which,
That's crazy.
which I thought, seriously, I didn't sleep for a year after that. I really was convinced that sub penthouses would never go over 300, and that was the end of it.
Right.
But I remember at that time, there was a building going up on all 4 sides of my unit. There was the Bentley behind me. There was Richards. There was something Lofts. I forgot. Tribeca Lofts.
Okay.
And then the Miro. So that was how Yaletown was, kind of like 2003 to 2005, is that there was pretty much a building going up on every corner. So I think that was really where it completely changed. And of course, I think back then, the Yaletown Heritage area had a really nice mix of retail, and basically now it's pretty much restaurants and services for the high maintenance Yaletown population.
Sure. Yeah.
But I remember it being a really eclectic mix of cafes and shops. I actually like the mix down there a lot better than I do today.
Right.
But yeah, that's where the building boom, pretty much in my opinion, really happened.
Okay, and that was for Yaletown. And I want your opinion on Coal Harbour, because again, when I first moved to Coal Harbour, or the Vancouver, British Columbia, Coal Harbour was also a fairly deserted area. There wasn't much going on there, and now that seems to have just come up, exploded. Is Coal Harbour a more desirable area to live in right now than Yaletown?
It's really, really different demographic. Coal Harbour, really, a lot of it was built in the late 90s. So you had pretty much everything you see on the front row is getting close to 20 years old. So it is well established. It is a lot quieter than Yaletown. It really suffers from, I would say, a lack of vibrancy. It is very dark and cold for a lot of the year. In my opinion, I think the city kind of dropped, just really could have put a lot more thought into planning kind of a north-facing community on a north-sloping part of the downtown peninsula, perhaps with a few more parks and open spaces. I actually live in Coal Harbour, and if you take your evening walk, you just head right out of here and you walk over to English Bay or somewhere where it's warm and sunny. So I'd say it has a little bit of a vacant feel. It is really adjacent to the seawall in the park, so your access to all that stuff is really great. You're close to Robson, you're close to the West End. But when you're right in it, it has a little bit of a hollow feel. It's a bit of a wind tunnel on streets like Hastings and Pender. So I wouldn't say it's all that cozy. Some of the views are great. I think Yaletown has far more of a sense of community. Okay. Far more shops and services right at your doorstep.
Right.
So, different strokes. But if you want something a little bit lively, maybe in your 30s or 40s, I definitely choose Yaletown over Coal Harbour.
Okay. And one more question I want to pick your brain about, because I know you specialize in downtown real estate, West End. What's your thoughts on, I don't know if it would be called the new Yaletown, but down near the Vancouver House. So we're talking down near the bottom of Howe and Pacific area. Yeah. What's it called?
It's been suddenly changed to the Beach District.
The Beach District. Okay.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that area?
I actually really, really like that location. I sold quite a few properties in a complex called 888 Beach a few years ago, which was actually the premier development in that area for many, many years. Built in the early 90s, I think it was 1993 actually. James Cheng designed, it was the landmark. So I did quite a few listings in there over a period of a couple of years back in 2010 to 2013. And the one thing that area lacked was amenities. You basically had Tartine on the corner where the entire community met for pies and coffee, and you had a little tiny corner store. If you wanted to go grocery shopping, you needed to go up to Davie Street, or you needed to go to the Urban Fair over in Yaletown. So although in terms of its setting, its proximity to the water and seawall, Sunset Beach, all that, unbeatable. Ferries to Granville Island. But there was absolutely no place to go for coffee, no place to go for food. Yeah. There was one or two restaurants. So what's fantastic now is with the Vancouver House development, you finally have all the amenities you need down there. You have Fresh Street Market, you have London Drugs, you're getting a plethora of coffee houses and restaurants over the next few years. So that was my complaint previously. I think now that's been resolved. So I think it's just a great place to live. Again, you're adjacent to the beginning of the West End. You're connected to the seawall, Sunset Beach, stone's throw from English Bay. Love that little enclave. Absolutely love it. I don't want it to get too much more dense.
Yeah.
It's getting pretty dark over there as well.
Right.
But location-wise, I think it's just probably one of the best spots downtown.
Right. And, it's interesting that you say that, because I used to live, and you probably know this building, at 501 Pacific. I bought back there, and I think it was around 2009. And my complaint was the same thing. There was not nearly enough amenities. My closest grocery store was Choices, and that was like 3 blocks up. It wasn't that far, but I mean, Choices doesn't have everything a guy like me needs. Like, I need to buy in bulk. Yeah. So that was the reason I loved living by the seawall. I loved the views. I loved all that. But I mean, this was right before the Mark came up, which was right next door. Yeah. There was nothing around. So it seems like that place is up and coming, that area. And funny enough, and we found this out one day when I was working with you on the floor, that you sold my mom's place for her, and she was down on, was it Howan Beach, I think?
That's right. She was in the 8AH Beach Complex. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
It was funny. And I really enjoyed working with your mom. It was just one of those daisy chain things that happen as realtors. I was the guy in the lobby doing the open houses, and I just got one listing after another in there. And, thank you to everyone in 88 Beach. I did my time in there. I did it during the big remediations. So there was a lot of work going on. But yeah, I got to know it really, really well. And yes, vastly improved, especially Fresh Street. It's a really nice store. And it's become a real hub for that community. So yeah. Big improvements.
And that's what my mom said to me. She's like, Dean is, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass here. She said, Dean, without a doubt, is the best agent I've ever worked with. And one of the reasons she said that was he was trying to sell my place, not only during a recession, but just like you said, all the amenities going on in the building at the time. Is that difficult for an agent to make a sale when, okay, if it's a leaky condo or something, you're the one selling that condo?
It's difficult if the work hasn't been addressed, approved, and maybe started.
Okay.
So I think a lot of savvy buyers see work as a good thing. All buildings need work. At that time, that complex was 20 years old. It was due for some scheduled stuff. The costs of doing things in that complex seemed astronomical because it was a 3-tower complex, but if you divided it up amongst all the suites, it really wasn't all that terrible. So the uneducated or first-time buyer, the W word or anything raises alarm bells. And that's why I steer a lot of my first-time buyers to newer buildings that are still under the 2510 warranty or parts of it. But the savvy buyers, they'll comb the strata docs. They'll see that that work needed to be done. They've done the SGM. It's been voted on. It's been mostly funded or phased funded, where they're going to be doing some now, some in 2025. So that's a positive to most of my experienced buyers. Now with depreciation reports, we've got so much material to go on. We've got all these roadmaps, these funding models, and there's enough to go on that an experienced buyer can look at that and say, hey, this building's fantastic, even though it may be partially covered in scaffold.
Right.
Newer buyers, yes, a little bit more education, which we're happy to do. But by the time we go through, to really, it's funny because a lot of buyers just feel, if a condo needs work, that's something bad. But they never feel that if a house needs work, it's something bad. Well, it's just a large version of the same thing.
That's right.
House needs a new roof, it needs new plumbing, needs new electrical. They have the odd structural issues, crack in the foundation. Well, these are just giant versions of the same thing. So I always have to get my first-time buyers' heads around the fact that you're not just moving from like a rental to an owning a rental. You're now part owner of a giant house, and you need to maintain it. You need to have some money in the bank when you buy, maybe access to a credit line, because you are going to have expenses. And even if there's none when you're buying or none coming up, there's going to be while you live there.
I think that was the first mistake I made when I bought my first place. I mean, I was really young. At the time I was 18 and I was, but you know what? I put everything down on that down payment and I was house poor for about a good 2 years.
Still the best thing you ever did.
Yeah. Looking back at it now, I wish I got in back in the late 90s like you did, but I miss you by a few years. But I also wanted your opinion.
You're younger though, so that's fine.
Not by much. I also wanted your opinion because you do specialize with downtown, but you also know the West End really well. And recently there's been a few new buildings coming up on West End, especially at the bottom of Davie Street. And I think a few of those are rental towers. But what's your opinion on the way the West End is going right now, real estate wise?
Well, that was the West End Community Plan that was, I'm probably getting the year wrong, but I think it was 2015, where they added density to almost all of Davie, Lower Robson, all of Alberni, and a massive amount of density kind of between Thurlow and Burrard, around the Nelson, Thurlow, Burrard area, and then all the way down Thurlow to Beach Avenue. My opinion of the West End is I feel it has a certain charm and soul that I don't want to see disappear. I feel like, the densification thing, the downside of it is that we lose a lot of our heritage neighborhoods. We lose a lot of the fabric and soul of what makes Vancouver wonderful, and it just becomes a bunch of glass towers. That said, one thing that I really liked about the West End plan was that it kept the density quite low off the main thoroughfares. So, and they renamed a few of the areas. So the central area is now called the Nelson Plateau, which no one's ever going to call it that.
I saw that.
The area south of Davie is called, I think it's called Beach Slopes, all these ridiculous names, but they've kept those very, very low. And in fact, I believe in the Nelson Slopes, the sort of central West End area, in a large portion of it, the maximum height is now 6 stories.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's a bit of a trade-off. So what they've done is they've concentrated the density in the main thoroughfares, which never really had all that much soul and character to begin with. And they actually made sure that, areas like west of Denman, the central part and the beach, are kept pretty much the same. And if they do replace the building, it's got to be similar mass and size, similar setbacks. So I do like that. I think the density on Lower Davie and Robson might be a little crazy. It's going to result in a lot of shadowing, a lot more darkness down there. Used to drive down to English Bay and you'd go down over that crest and you'd see English Bay, and it was really cool. And now it's just like this canyon.
There's big towers up there now.
Yeah, but it's providing a lot of rental housing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, most of those rentals are all uber luxury buildings.
Yeah, very expensive.
Most of those rents are way more than a lot of the mortgages I can try to get for my first time buyers. So
Sure. Yeah. It's funny because the area you're talking about, my dad lives down on Burnaby and Bidwell. So Burnaby
okay.
Street, Bidwell Street. So that area, and he said it's completely changed since he moved there back when about 98.
Yeah.
Lucky for him, he still has good rental control. So he's got good rent there. Dean, and one more, just before I love picking your brain about real estate. I want your opinion also on Olympic Village. Have you yourself dealt with any properties in that area?
Yeah, I've done a handful, not a lot, a
Okay.
handful. We had a lot of buyers interested in Olympic Village through the real boom years of early 2015 to early 2018.
Okay.
And what I found in Olympic Village, I love Olympic Village. I do like the seawall, the amenities. I like the fact that the buildings aren't too high. There's still a lot of light down there. I love it's being adjacent to just the burgeoning Mount Pleasant, craft beer scene and restaurant scene and the light industrial area. There's so much creative talent around there. And but the one thing that I did find through sort of the boom years in Olympic Village is that the price per square foot was crazy. And I could often do better in the West End or Fairview or Yaletown or even in Coal Harbour.
Wow.
There was a little bit more variety to the buildings. They're a bit cookie cutter in Olympic Village. And because the maximum height for a lot of them is about 12 to 14 stories, they tend to be these boxes that are right up against each other. And the views tend to be some of the worst views of anywhere. So we'd have a lot of clients who were excited about it. We get them down there and sure, it had Bosch appliances and quartz countertop and stuff, but your neighbor was like right there. And a lot of them would look and then choose another area based on, having a bit more view or maybe a bit of variety in architecture or, so it was kind of lukewarm. Did a few pre-sale deals down there. Those buyers did extremely well. We did a couple off the top of my head that they bought in the mid threes and moved in 2015. By 2017, they were up in the low sixes. So
Wow.
They were amazing gains.
That's a great flip. Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah.
Do you find that most of your clients that come to work with you, I mean, I know you've got some long-term clients that have been with you for years, but do you find most clients that come to work with you, are they more looking for investment property or are they looking like the first-time home buyer that this is my place, I want to grow a family in?
I would say for the first-time buyers are definitely looking to live in it.
Yeah.
And some of the more experienced buyers, I'd say it's about 50-50 with investments. I would say since the market changed in kind of early 2018, we're seeing a lot less speculative buying, a lot more clients looking for long-term homes.
Oh, okay.
Definitely. Yeah. They're not looking 1 or 2 years out now. They're looking 5 to 7 years out.
Right.
They're looking for more space. They're looking for, increasing their budget so that they can grow inside their home. So definitely a longer term, more pragmatic approach.
Okay.
Who knows what's going to happen with COVID? But going into COVID, and we were going into just a fantastic spring.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Fire. I mean, everybody was just doing great. We sold a house in multiple offers in East Van for a crazy price, like 2 days before the lockdown. So it's very unfortunate because we were just off to the races and we were just completely in recovery mode. And it's a bit of a shame. We'll see what happens.
Well, that's what I wanted to get to next. COVID-19. So I've been watching the market. I don't know the market nearly like you know the market. That's why I want the expert on the channel. What's been going on with the real estate market here in Vancouver since, let's say, mid-March? I believe it was around March 14th, March 16th, when Vancouver actually went into a bit of a lockdown here. What's been going on with the real estate market?
Well, you said it. I mean, we were going full tilt until about mid-March. Really off to the races. I mean, this house we did in East Van right for the lockdown. I mean, we had to actually push the offer day from a Monday back to a Friday because I felt things were being locked down and we were already getting restrictions on how we could show. There was already a no open house rule. So what happened after that is obviously the March stats were really tough to read because we had like 2/3 of a good month and then 1/3 of a terrible month. But the April stats, as you know, I mean, showed sales down over 60%. The media tend to, spin that into just disaster. I wasn't surprised by that at all because I see our market in a pause rather than a decline.
Right.
So if you have a booming coffee house and you've reduced your coffee house hours from 10 hours a day to 2 hours a day, which is how I see the market with our limited access, our inability to do open houses, our ability to really only market and show listings that are vacant. That's like reducing store hours from 10 hours a day to 2 hours a day. Well, of course, you're going to have less transactions.
Right.
I didn't hear the mainstream media really discuss that, which really upset me. But that's totally, in my opinion, why sales were down 60%. I'm surprised they weren't down 80%.
Okay.
So there were properties transacting. A lot of my colleagues had a fairly good success with vacant properties that you could show where clients weren't hesitant to come in, fearing germs or anything else. So right now, I still feel we're in pause mode. I don't know where we're going because we've never been in this before. There is, in my circles, some pent-up buyer demand. There are a lot of listings coming online in the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
I've noticed that with all the listings flying into my buyers' inboxes. I don't know. We've heard of a few multiple offer scenarios in my sort of circle of colleagues in the last couple of weeks, which has really surprised me. We've seen a few properties transact at really, really healthy prices. So there are some buyers in there that really believe that, perhaps paying a premium right now may still be a good idea, and maybe they're beating everybody to the punch when people feel comfortable enough to get back out there. So we've got some key metrics that are in good shape. We've got interest rates that are very low. They're certainly not going anywhere. Who knows? Well, we're ready to launch. We've got 2 listings we're launching on Friday. We've got 2 more that we're doing next week. Ask me again in a month. To really see how those go. Really on the front lines of that will be really interesting.
I want to get to those listings in a second. I want to ask you though, because you said it, the media tends to sensationalize things. Do you have a lot of people coming to you and say, I got to get rid of my property right now, the sky is falling? I mean, we've been hearing in Vancouver that this bubble is going to pop since I've been here. There's been going on 2 decades. The bubble's going to pop. The bubble's going to pop. In your opinion, is the bubble about to pop?
Well, I'll say that the people who said the bubble was going to pop in 2002 should have bought about 21. There's still some of the buyers I'm trying to get in the market.
Yeah.
I had buyers saying the bubble was going to pop in 2007 when I got my license, that ended up buying in 2016 and paying triple.
Right.
I don't know. We've got some elements in Vancouver to our market that I feel keep us somewhat insulated.
Sure.
Canada is a very safe haven for money. Our banking industry is probably the most stable and strongest in the world. It's a good place to be. Vancouver is a playground, all season playground. It's magnificent. We've got those metrics that always exist. So, if there's sort of a flight to safety, Vancouver, I feel, is one of the safe havens. We've also got, if you go back 25 years, we've got an incredible record for growth in real estate. I mean, we've had probably 2-3 mediocre years in the space of, and I say 23 years because that's when I bought my first condo. And I think, throughout that 23 years of investing in multiple properties, there was only 1 or 2 years where I really opened up my assessment and went, oh, every other one was like, So I think the same people who think the sky's falling were also all those people that sold in the stock market about a month and a half ago.
That's about to say, yeah.
We've recovered 70% of that. Yeah. All the savvy investors kept their cool heads.
Yeah.
But as my brother's a stockbroker, and what I hear from people in this industry is, if you don't like the market, don't open your statements for 2 months.
Exactly.
If you don't like the market in Vancouver, don't open your assessment for a year, and enjoy your home.
Yeah, that's right.
Stop watching it. Stop watching comparables. Just sit back and enjoy your home.
Enjoy your lower property taxes too for that year. So now tell me about your listings. Now you've obviously since 2007, since you've been showing places, it's always been in person. And now you've had to go to these virtual tours. First of all, tell me what that transition was like and how you guys are doing that.
Well, as I said, I mean, when I'm working with Angela, we're hiring an actor. So we've actually kind of just started this. The way we've been handling our existing listings through this COVID right now is by only working with vacant properties.
Okay.
Now, with vacant properties, it's been pretty easy. We have a couple of waivers that we have the buyers or anybody accompanying them sign. We've got a couple of COVID documents that we have our sellers signing, allowing these showings and outlining the risks and that and the other. So with vacant properties, aside from not being able to do open houses, it's been business as usual. If there's been any hesitation with buyers, we'll often do like a key drop to the office and have them just be with their agent, or we'll often meet them in the lobby. We've done things like I give the key in a Ziploc bag, I leave some hand sanitizer in the suite, have them not touch anything. So this virtual thing is brand new for us too. On a listing, I was working with one of my colleagues, Angela Chase. We actually hired an actor who has his real estate license. I'll give him a plug. Guy Christie did an incredible job. Who basically did a 15-minute home and garden television show on one of the listings we're working on. Just absolutely exceptional. Did not miss a beat for 15 minutes. The 15 minutes went by like 2 minutes because it was so entertaining.
Right.
So we've decided to continue to hire him, and I think what we're going to do is 2 of the 3 listings we're putting up in the next week or so are vacant. One is owner occupied. They're very comfortable with doing showings, so it should be pretty easy. But we're absolutely hiring Guy Christie to do it. It's worth a lot of money. Saves me the embarrassment and the awkwardness of doing it. Not only that, he had like a steady cam too. I mean, it was just fantastic.
You were mentioning me that you were telling me about this off camera before we went on, and I thought it's a great idea. You're actually the first agent I've heard that's actually doing this, because most agents, like you said, you and I are not camera guys. I mean, we're just having a conversation like that right now, like we've always done. But if you put me on a camera where I have to act or something, I'm going to freeze. That's not my thing. And I'm sure it's not yours either. So to hire someone who does this as a profession to show your place that you're listing, that's in my opinion, that's brilliant. I've seen some agents on their virtual tours showing it. It just looks very robotic.
It's a 1-bedroom apartment that's not professionally lit for a photo shoot is not always the most exciting thing. By the way, props to Angela Chase, because it was her idea. I'm just copying her idea on Guy Christie, but she came up with it. And yeah, I mean, you're gonna lose interest in the first 30 seconds if I'm walking around with my phone with no Steadicam or any gizmo to keep it steady. So you really need someone who's super engaging, super entertaining. You've almost got to turn it into entertainment, because by the time you see the bathroom and the kitchen and the 2 Bosch appliances and the new laminate flooring, you're done.
Sure.
But yeah, he just went on for 15 minutes. So yeah, we're gonna actually we've got a house in North Van that's absolutely beautiful that we're going to probably have him do, and then we've got a really sweet little place in Gastown coming up too that we're gonna have him do as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I look forward to seeing those.
Hopefully his pricing won't go up too much.
No, well, okay. And before I let you go, because I know you're a busy guy, but I want your opinion on this. Two questions. If I'm a seller, what's a good reason for me to put my place on the market during COVID-19?
Well, I would have said about 2 to 3 weeks ago, you would have had very little competition. There was virtually no inventory, respective to how it usually is. So if there were any buyers out there, you would get noticed. I've seen a huge increase in inventory in the last couple of weeks, unscientifically, based on just all the properties that are going into my buyers' inboxes. But still, I think you'd be in a situation with less competition than when perhaps the economy is, fully on the rebound, say, let's July, August, right?
Right.
So you might still have, you might still get a little bit more attention, okay, but not as much as you probably would maybe 2 to 3 weeks ago. Still good though. Again, you'd have to be very comfortable with people entering your suite. You need to allow that, no matter how long your videos are and how many photos you have on MLS. Real estate is a personal thing, especially if it's going to be owner occupied, and they still want to gain access, right?
Sure.
So if I was listing, I would do everything in my power to have that property be vacant.
Okay.
And do everything in my power to have that property be staged. It needs to be at its best at this market. Buyers are hesitant, trepidatious. They're concerned about where the markets are going. But if you can really wow them, and if you are working with a realtor, make sure that realtor is spending a big budget on marketing. One of the most important things besides your realtor's experience and his track record is the marketing budget. I'm seeing some, and no names mentioned, but really, really not what we would do in terms of marketing. The minimum we do now is, obviously professional photographers with some of the best people we can source, videos that are longer and much more detailed than we used to be. 3D floor plans, for example, where we can actually draw the little dollhouse furniture and show people exactly the scale of each room, the finishes of each room, not just the size of each room. So pretty much, and a whole lot more. But really almost double the marketing budget we did before COVID, because that thing needs to grab you on MLS.
Sure.
So yeah, vacant suite staged and tons of marketing. I would say now you'll still get noticed for sure.
And like you said, not mentioning any names, but why are some agents so cheap when it comes to listing a place like that? Like I've seen your listings, they look so professionally done, but then you look at other ones and it's just like there's 2 or 3 photos. I could have put it on. I mean, it looks like I did it.
Yeah. Well, I can't speak badly of anybody, but there's the term order taker. Here's the deal. I mean, generally the commission rates are fairly standard. There is no official commission rate, but there is a going commission rate, and most of us charge pretty much the same thing. So if your realtor is making X amount, and the same realtor who does absolutely no marketing is making X amount, I would, as a seller, I'd probably ask them why, and I'd probably, basically say, hey, 306, they've got Joe Smith, and they've done like a Hollywood production video. They've done exceptional photos. They got a 3D floor plan. I'm in 305. Like, why is it, camera phone shots and no floor plan? Why? Ask your realtor. Yeah. I mean, they may step it up.
Okay.
But I really, really would make sure that if you are working with an agent, that the marketing is as good as it can be. You've worked really hard on pricing. And if you've done all that, then you've done it all and you feel really good about it. And then if it's not selling, it's the market, or it's something perhaps that you don't have as much control over. But every element that you have control over, you should be putting in 300%.
Okay. Yeah. That's great tips, great advice. And if I'm a buyer, is it a good time for me to jump into this market right now?
I do feel that there's probably some listings that have been on for a while. Okay. What I tend to do with my buyers is I look obviously for the property that ticks all the boxes, but I also tend to look for properties that have been listed for a long time. And I also look for poorly marketed properties, because I know that those poorly marketed properties are attracting far fewer buyers.
Right.
And I also, it goes back to what we said before, the motivation of that agent perhaps is more commission-based than client-based. That's a terrible thing. You need to cut this because I'm going to lose my license. But so if you're a buyer and you've got a good experienced agent, that agent's going to look for those listings. And in my opinion, there's quite a few of those now that are showing 60, 90 days plus on market.
Right.
Take that, combine it with some terrible marketing, and you may get a good deal on those.
Smart.
Those are what we write aggressively on.
Yeah. And, Dean, that's why I wanted to get you on the channel. I don't want to cut that out because you are so honest. And that's, I think, why you have such a good clientele base. You're very honest about that. I mean, I work in an industry where a lot of trainers, they're not so honest. I know a lot of realtors, they're not so honest. They're the cheesy salesman. You're not like that. I mean, you've had clients with you for years. So that's a true testament to your services. If someone is looking
to you, it's always worth it to lose a deal and gain 10 over the long term.
I agree. I agree.
We've walked away from a lot of properties with buyers because I just can't stomach the Stratadox.
Sure.
I know that if we were to do those deals, sure, I'd get a nice fat paycheck, but boy, oh boy, would that come back to haunt me. I see my clients every day on the street. I see them on Facebook, on Instagram, at the gym.
Yeah.
I mean, just like you do. I mean, we have to live with our clients as long as our careers exist.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I mean, if you are looking for, I just want to give you a plug here. If you are looking for a realtor in Vancouver, I mean, Dean, I could say any building and you'll know it. Like, you know this city so well. Oh, I think he just froze on you. You still with me? Can you hear me, Dean?
Just losing you. I just lost you there for a minute. Now you're frozen.
Yeah,
there you
it's
are.
okay. Okay, there we go. We just had a smile. There we go. Disconnection. All right, I see you. If someone is looking for a realtor, though, what would be the best way to get in contact with you?
DeanEllison.ca, right on the front page. You've got our all our links, our social media links, our best main phone number, and our best main email. Give us a shout anytime. We're happy to spend hours with you at no cost, just to educate you on the market. We've been doing this a long time. My business partner, Ira Gordon Collins, has been in 11 years. I've been in 13 years. You know, our clients like us, say good things about us, but we will always educate as much as possible and take all the time we need to make you feel comfortable about your pursuits. And if you don't end up working with us, great, you learn something.
That's why I love picking your brain about real estate. You know your stuff. You're great.
Anytime.
I'm going to plug all your business contact information into the link in the description of this video below so people can get in contact with you. And if you are looking to buy or sell, I strongly advise you to contact Dean. In my opinion, he's one of the best realtors in the market today. He knows his stuff, especially here in downtown Vancouver and also North Van. I mean, you're not just doing downtown Vancouver and West End. You deal with North Vancouver. Where do you stop?
Yeah.
Do you go out as far as Burnaby as well, or do you keep it all down here?
Ira's based in North Van. Okay. He's sort of a Lynn Valley-based agent. We've been really growing our business over there because he's really getting some traction. He's doing some great job. We got an amazing, absolutely incredible house coming up in about 2 weeks, deep in Lynn Canyon, Lynn Valley, and he's been making some really good inroads there, and that's really where we're growing our business. I still do a lot downtown. Burnaby, not so much. I really stay focused on all the downtown neighborhoods. Also, you know, lots in Gastown, lots in Kitts, Mount Pleasant, Fairview, Olympic Village. That's right. Where I feel comfortable. Yeah. If it's a place where Ira and I don't feel comfortable, we will refer it out. Okay. We want to do business where we're experts. Yeah. It's kind of like, you know, you teaching a hot yoga class, right? You know, you can do
my thing. No.
But, you know, you want to do what we want to give our clients bang for the buck, and we're not going to do that in Burnaby.
Yeah, no, I get it. I understand completely.
It was awful.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me today.
Pleasure.
It's always great talking with you and catching up. And
yeah, you got to get me back in shape.
Well, you know what? You look like you're in great shape still. And I mean, you know, I know you had to wait to get your hair done to get on this show because you had to wait about, 8 weeks for haircut?
I got 4 dumbbells in my living room. 235s and 215s.
You look great, Dean. Dina, thank you so much for spending time with me today. This video will be going up later on this week, so something to look forward to. And I'm looking forward to seeing those virtual tours. And you said 2 of them are going to be listed this Friday, right?
Yeah, we got one in Gastown, a beautiful renovated 1-bedroom in Gastown, right on the front row, beautiful view. And in Crosstown International Village, we've got a really beautiful garden level kind of rooftop, fairly large townhouse coming up. Oh, nice. Those are the 2 on Friday, and then we have this magnificent home in Lynn Valley, probably either next week or the week after, and then another one in Kitts coming up in about 2 weeks.
And all those listings can also be found on your website once they're up. Perfect.
Links to everything. We'll have beautiful videos on all of them, 3D floor plans, the works.
So click on Dean's website in the link below, and you can see those listings today or later on this week once the video's up.
Thanks for your great work too, Nick. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, Dean. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll talk with you again soon.
You got it. Thank you.
Bye.